league's exclusive. Is that a safe word to use? Exclusive broadcaster.
Something like that, I think. I would think so.
Yeah, our exclusive broadcaster. He is in the mix with us in pretty much almost everything we do, I think. His voice is reminiscent, I could say. Everybody knows when he walks into the room. He has a very, very distinctive voice, which is what makes you so great at broadcasting, I think.
Well, thanks. I appreciate it. I absolutely do.
Um, let's start right. I want to start right out of the gate. How in the world did did this even happen? Like you weren't just born and like I got a voice. I'm going to do stuff through a microphone. Like it's such a weird occupation.
And it is definitely. So, there's two ways that this started. The first time that it started was, um, I applied to be a radio salesperson. That's when I did my first radio ad, and it was just something that it just kind of came naturally. When you go out and you sell radio ads, you have to be able to produce radio ads, and so that's the first time I actually got my voice out there. But when it came to the real life aspect of utilizing the voice, that it was about 8 years ago when we started doing not only radio ads and radio shows, but we also did voiceover work. And then we started getting into calling dirt races locally at the Lake Ozark Speedway, and it all evolved really, really weirdly. I was in the restaurant industry in a tourist community, and you during the winter you pick up hours, you pick up all kinds of things, and lo and behold, it went from just having this unique talent that people didn't really recognize you until you spoke up, and you said, "Oh well, there's my commercial on there on the radio. Get the shuck out of your shell, Tucker Shuckers. Go to tuckershuckers.com." And and that's kind of pretty much how it evolved, to be able to have the voice and to be able to do this. And it's not something that comes lightly. Actually, I actually had to train myself to talk this way, because I used to have a very, very southern slang. I grew up in Mississippi, and so I was very, very inarticulate when it came to the way I spoke. So, as a mid 30 year old, that was the career choice that made the change, and here I am. That's it's crazy to be able to think that my voice could have an online presence as well as the things that we've done in the past. So.
So so you actually called dirt races over at
Mhm.
Beefly. Like you were up
Mhm.
in the booth and I mean you were calling it. That is so that's awesome. I mean, I don't know any other word to use other than awesome. Um and you said you had to train your voice. I mean, how's one even do that?
So everything that happens in racing is fast, and from on the dirt track or on an asphalt side of things, you watch Mike Joy and you watch all these NASCAR guys do it. It's always very fast paced, and there's a rhythm to it. When it came to training the voice, I had to step outside of your normal speaking voice, and most of the time I speak right from my diaphragm. And that changed the way I walked. It changed, the way you carry yourself and the presence that you have. So a lot of people, when you speak from your throat. And the first thing I had to learn when it came to speaking is to train myself to speak with more oomph and be more like, here I am, this is my voice and this is what I do. So it was pointers from, and I have to give credit where credit's due. Dennis Klautzer and Ken over at Viper Communications, which is our local radio station, 93.5 Rocks the Lake. They are the ones that help me develop who I am when it comes to my voice.
So I mean this is all just something that you
Mm-hmm.
fell into. I mean just completely out of blue. You had no idea.
Yeah.
Okay. And you said you were from Mississippi. What brought you to the Midwest and Missouri? I
So,
mean, how'd you end up there?
my mother's from originally from Louisiana. My father's originally from Illinois, and I was born in Mississippi. That's where they lived at the time. That's where a lot of my family is actually from. Is from Greenville, Mississippi, around that area. And when I was about 6 or 7, that's when we really took our roots into being in Illinois, and so I grew up the majority of my life in Illinois. So being a Southern kid in a very very non-traditional. I grew up in Effingham, Illinois. If those who know where Effingham, Illinois is, it's still Southern Illinois, but it's not necessarily your podunk Illinois town, so to speak. It's still considered a
Right.
city. Um, so kind of the outcast and all that stuff. So the way life works is you grow up in Illinois. You do one or two things. You join the military. You go to college. I tried to go to college first. It was too expensive. Decided to join the military. Military said, "Hey, we'll send you to college." So that was on that line of things that I want to do. I want to make sure I had an education and was able to serve, of course, serve my country and do that pretty proudly. And so from there to North Carolina, to Colorado, Seattle, and then I ended up here in the Midwest. I've been here for about, I don't know, 13 years. Um, I moved away for a couple of years, and then in 2012 is when I moved back. So, maybe, yeah, 12 years, about 12 years now.
So, in all that movement, when do you think that the the broadcasting, the speech stuff really started
About,
happening? Where were you at that
about
time?
8 years ago. And living here in the Lake of the Ozark, which is where me and Jess is, I call her Mrs. Signature, the ballistic one, whatever you want to call her when it comes to the gaming terms that we do here. Um, she, I moved here. So little backstory. My youngest brother, Cody, he passed away in 2012, and that's what brought me to the lake. My mother lives here. My stepfather lives here. My sister lives here. My aunt and uncle live here. And I wanted to be closer to my mother, and so I did. I moved here, and when I moved here, it was kind of a culture shock because I was working in fine dining and in the restaurant industry, and I came right into the Lake of the Ozarks, not used to the tourist community, not used to the seasonal kind of stuff. And so when I moved here, it became apparent that I was only going to make my living 6 months out of the year, and I had to figure out what I was going to do during the winter months. Now, right now, it's a whole different story. I make my money 6 months out of the year, and the winter months are my time to relax. So right now, this is what I consider my off season. But my off season never stops. I run a business. I make sure that this still flows, and I continue to do this. My evenings is my second job, and it's just basically it's what took um, my passion for being in a kitchen and my passion for being a part of a community, which the Lake of the Ozarks is an amazing community. And I took that and developed it into basically who I am. I actually grew up more in the last decade, which I in my 40s, folks. And I tell you what, when they say that men don't grow up until they're later in their age, I'll 110% agree with you. I didn't grow up until about 10 years ago. So about 8 years ago, whenever I started working with the restaurant industry, and I started getting to know the media companies around here, and you find your ends and you find your relationships, you find your community, and you find your plugs, and when you do, that's when of course I found that I had some of the best relationships built just based on having conversations with people. And I found my winter job was to, again, sell radio ads. And when I sold those radio ads, that's when I had the greatest mentor. Dennis is probably still to this day, if I ever have something that I have a question about or something that I'm just not sure on, or how should I approach, I'll call him and I'll say, "Hey, Dennis, this is what I'm facing right now. What do you recommend?" And he'll give me some solid advice. So he's the reason why I never stopped uh, trying to push a voice and try to be heard.
Right. So you were saying, you grew up in
Mhm.
Mississippi. So just trying to give a broad spectrum here. You grew up in Mississippi. You joined the military. What branch did
Army.
you join? Okay, you were in the Army. Um, you moved
A
around a lot,
lot.
obviously, because of the Army. Yeah, I mean, no one sits still, it seems like, and you end up finding yourself in the Midwest around
Mm-hmm.
family, which is super cool. No one knows, but you do. I'm from Iowa, so I'm a stone throw away. I go spoonbill season, in the Ozarks all the time. So I'm very, very familiar with the area, and I can 100% attest to everything you're saying. Especially now, I live in Florida, and the tourist stuff I get where you're coming from because it's so hard to understand the on season and the off season because the money
Mm-hmm.
fluctuates so much, just based off tourism. And that a lot of these states that have something to come to, I mean, there's businesses that's what they count
Yep.
on it. They bank on it. They
Yeah,
have to.
they thrive. Yep.
So that's super cool. Um, I wanted to touch base, kind of fast forward a little bit to your broadcasting dirt
Mm-hmm.
racing. Um, were you even were you even familiar with dirt racing then? Here's a better question. Were you familiar with dirt racing? Were you into racing at all? And it's just something with your voice that, maybe, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe, that's what got your passion for it is by doing the commentary stuff, at the racetrack. Lead us on that
So
path
I've
there.
always been a NASCAR fan, of course. I mean, growing up, we've all had our drivers, but I think the one my father and I always differed on football teams, basketball teams, every sports team that you can ever imagine, except for the Cardinals, and of course Dale Senior. So those are the two things we could agree on in our life, and so NASCAR was just inherently a part of the culture of racing. It actually Jesse actually, but my wife, she actually is the one that got me into dirt racing, because she
Okay.
used to dirt race. And oh yeah, she's got a lot more testicular fortitude than when it comes to
A lot of
oh
people.
you and if you ask her, if I asked her tomorrow, if I said, honey, I've got about 10 grand, we can put it into a car, where do you want to go race? And she'd tell me. um I, it, and
It's
she'd do it.
awesome.
And of course, she and I, similar in age, we're in our 40s, and she'd want to go racing, and that's um, getting to know the local tracks, getting to know. She has family that works with Lucas Oil over in the Lucas Oil Raceway here. Um, going up to Peevely, going to our local. We have a local dirt track, the Lake Ozark Speedway. We now have a 2.7 mile road course as well that's trying to get on the IMSA circuit. So there's a lot of racing around the Lake of the Ozarks. This is like a central hub to 5 different tracks across the Midwest that
Yep.
that just centralizes itself. When it comes to how I got into calling a race, that was an accident. I was there just to cover um, driver interviews afterwards, and just write stories for the station and do things like that. And they heard me speak, and they said, "Hey, next weekend, would you like to come up and color commentate?" And it was just it was unpaid. It was just hey, come up and do this. And so I did that at I-55, and I didn't do it as often as I really wanted to, but if they needed somebody and I had the time, that's what I did. I went up and filled in. Um, and that was, I think what was great about that is that was kind of like that internship that you always want to look for. And um, it really gave me an insight on just what goes into production, what goes into um, caring about what you do, and how these drivers want to hear themselves. The drivers can't hear you in their car, but the fans can.
Yep.
And it's all about putting on a show, and it's all about caring what the fans hear and supporting their drivers, because everybody has their driver in the dirt circuit, especially in the local dirt circuit. Um, it is more important to talk about what that driver's doing, regardless of what's happening on there, and having that bigger care. Similar to, that's the way that I take that into iRacing. That same passion that you hear from these local dirt tracks and these local commentators that are getting out there and putting all that effort in. I was blown away, and that was 8 years ago, and to this day, am very grateful for it. I probably had a couple of dozen opportunities to call races, and I was just the sideline guy. I wasn't the guy that was out there, you know, pounding it out and having all the quick whims and the whimsical things when it comes to, the catchphrases that a lot of commentators have. I was the guy that was just the filler. This guy's from this
Okay.
hometown, and he won. His last win came here. That was what I did. And
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because I mean, there's so much to this that we got to uncover here. Have you been to
mhm,
Knoxville
I
Raceway?
sure have. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so you're familiar with Tony
Sure have.
Bachhofen,
Yep.
right? Okay. And Tony's a
Yep.
great dude, on and off the track, phenomenal guy. Um, I like to use him as an example because I mean, I grew up, I mean, his voice is still in my head. I mean, through high school, I was always at the track. He's always been the man with the voice at Knoxville
Yeah.
Raceway. The reason I bring him up is because, like you were saying, you want to talk about you almost want to cover every driver because everybody in that stand is a fan of somebody out there, right? There's almost never a driver that doesn't have one
Yep.
fan, right? Um, the thing that I like most about Tony, and I think you were saying this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys as in commentators, are also like the hype men. Is, because there's a lot of emotion and it's your job to express that emotion through the mic so the people watching the race also feel that. And I think one of the things that Tony does very well is, like during the Nationals, let's just use that, and Logan Schuchart starts in the back because he had a horrible night too, and he's making his way through the pack, and he will stay on that for a good minute, not based off of, everybody's a Schuchart fan, but it's to build the
Hmm.
story up, you know. And I think that takes a lot of talent to be able to pinpoint, especially during a race because everything's so fast. Peevely is a stupid
Hmm.
fast track because it's a ring of fire or a bull ring or whatever you want to call it. It's tiny, but it's
Yep.
insanely fast, and it's hard to keep up with a track like that, especially in your predicament. What I wanted to touch base on with all of that is the terminology. Like you already know, the terminology between NASCAR and sprint car race or any dirt track racing is very, very different. There's a lot of similarities, but it is completely different. NASCAR talks about wedge like dirt track talks about stagger. You know, it's almost the same thing, but it's extremely different on both sides of the spectrum. Did your wife, being that she drove, was she the one that was kind of coaching you through, the terminology, or is it just something you kind of put your knuckle to the ground and figured out as you were doing all of this?
So I love Jess to pieces, but she didn't know a diddly squat about the car. Um, and but
Well, most
that's
drivers
and
don't.
you and same thing. Kyle Larson, we'll take that for example. He says, I don't know anything about the car, but I can drive it, and that's
Yep.
pretty much the way she was. Um, the way that I have learned about, it's kind of a self teaching aspect of racing. Um, you can teach sports commentation to anybody. You can go to school for it and you can get a degree in it, but you don't get the experience of knowing what the car does or knowing what a car does or can do without doing your research. Um, what's great about it, about iRacing, is that I have everything at my fingertips. I can know what the cars are going to do by getting out there and doing it. Um, but
Yep.
when it came to calling dirt racing in real life, I actually had to ask the drivers what their cars do. When I saw something, or ask the questions of other commentators or the track officials, and just do the research, because it's not just a cut and dry thing. You have to take the time and gain the knowledge and soak it up and say, okay, well, if they are out there and they're running a softer tire because the temperatures are different tonight. Why are they running that tire? What's going on with the track surface? Because maybe they don't normally return the surface between heat one and heat two, but they had to this time because maybe somebody lost a tire and it dug a rut, and there's some more damage. Why do those things matter? Why is the track surface cooked in the way it is? Why do they run the high line first and then go down to the bottom and work the track up? There's different things that happen with different surfaces, and you kind of have to educate yourself and take the time to do it. That was the developing the voice is the easy part, I think. I think the hardest part of it was making sure I didn't say something that I was going to like stick my foot in my mouth with. And that happened a couple of times. When you don't know, you have to say I don't know. And a couple of times I was trying to be like, oh, I'm the big bad guy here. I'm going to impress them with some track terminology, and and I didn't know it. I didn't at that time. I didn't know what I was talking about. And but you get the professionals out there that kind of help correct and steer you in the right direction. And I was lucky in that. And I didn't try to let the ego uh, get in the way of that, because I knew at that time I was in awe of the people of what they could do around me. They could pinpoint a car, and before they were wrecking, they knew what was going to happen whenever they came into
Right.
especially at Peevely. Peevely is very very awkwardly shaped as an oval, right? The back
Yep.
straightaway kind of angles out, but it has two sharp divots into 3 and 4, and it kind of has a weird level in. And they knew that if they didn't hit that hit the bottom, especially if they're running the bottom, if they're going to hit that bottom, they needed to hit the bottom a specific way. And all these not just the announcers, the media crew, everybody that was familiar with the track there, especially Lake Ozark Speedway. I know Lake Ozark Speedway a lot better than I know Peevely now, um, but when I first started there, I could watch different officials and different people. You could tell the mannerisms of what people were going to do uh, based on where the drivers were at on the track. When they saw something coming, you could see people get into action before it actually happened. It was crazy to think that that much track knowledge can happen just by being there. And I think that was the biggest experience about getting into racing and getting into commentating. That was huge. I mean, it was an incredible opportunity to be able to just sit there over the course of a few years and be able to take advantage of that.
I do want to touch base on this, because really what I hear that you're saying is the races from a commentator standpoint or announcer standpoint is almost predictable, when you know all these things, which is a really cool thing to say because, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, I would assume if I were in your position, that would be the most exciting part about the job, based on the fact that something's coming and 99.9% of the time the outcome. And I want to use this as a good example is Chastain at Martinsville. Everybody's tried riding that outside wall so many
Mm-hmm.
times, right? Everybody's done it. And it never works out, except Chastain made it happen, right? Which everybody, you can watch the replays. They knew exactly what he was going to do. Everybody knew he was going to run that wall. Everybody. No one knew he was going to stick it and make
Yeah,
it into the
yeah.
playoffs. So I mean, is that like a driving tool, knowing like, okay, I know this is happening, and I know what he's thinking of, what this driver's thinking about doing, and I know pretty much what the outcome is. But when that outcome isn't the same that you've seen 900 times before, and it actually works, I mean, what does that do for a commentator? Do you just feel the excitement come through your voice?
So the lots of things are predictable. There are drive lines that are predictable. There's a race line that's predictable. What's not predictable are the decisions of the drivers. I take this to every race that we called now, because I can tell you that I expect these 5 drivers to quote unquote run up front. But I've got this guy that normally runs in the back, and this is his favorite track, and he's really good here. And we talked about the best way to describe what we do is, you said it earlier, is telling a story. So what Ross Chastain did there was make a story. And that right there it changes night and day. Um, that's a surprising moment in racing. Excuse me, that just defines what we do, and makes. I couldn't tell you how excited I was when I saw that happen. I watched it on television, and I was like, he just ran the outside wall. I couldn't believe it. I was
What?
like, I've watched. We watched Larson 2 weeks prior to that try to do it at Darlington, and and couldn't
Yep.
make it stick. And then Ross Chastain comes out and nails the wall. And of course, now they make it illegal, but
Right.
um, the 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 shock and awe syndrome of things is incredible, and to have a story be changed in the blink of an eye. That's what racing's all about. And so those are the moments you are always looking for. I'm always looking for who's going to be the next big story, regardless of who wins the race. Some of the best times that I've had is watching somebody who's the biggest mover of the race choose to start in the back. They're not having a great day, or they're trying to learn the track. Maybe they're new to iRacing. They're just trying to figure some things out. And when it clicks, it's there. That's the next moment, and that makes more of an impact than just winning the race. Those top 3 are absolutely amazing. They earn every spot that they get, but those guys that are there to learn and there to improve their craft on any racetrack, whether it's dirt, whether it's the road series, whether it's iRacing or in real life, it's incredible to see. I've watched drivers go from the simulator to actual NASCAR and couldn't be more proud to have been able to call races that they've been in, and that's a huge stepping stone. And that's more exciting to me than watching Kyle Larson win, because these kids are improving their future. And that's it's such huge. And we watch the local dirt track sector. We watch these drivers that get in their hobby stocks and say, you know what, next year I'm gonna try a big block. And then they get in the big block and they're like, nope, not in the big block. We're not doing that. Or they'll try to
Right.
get into a sprint car and try something different, and try to make a world of outlaws. It's a whole different ball of wax, and every story is unique. But to watch somebody change the course of history, which is what Ross Chastain did. I don't care what anybody says out there, like him or hate him. He changed the course of history on that race line and in that moment, because he chose to do it. He won Phoenix last year and says, if I was in the playoffs, I'd be your champion right now. He said,
Yep.
nobody thought we could do it.
And see, and I'm not a fan of Ross Chastain
Yeah.
at all. But you got to, like you said, he's like the Tom. I wouldn't say he's like the Tom Brady of football, but if you want, use examples, Tom Brady. There's not a lot of people that like him, but you got to respect what
Yeah.
the
Oh,
guy
yeah.
did. He was, and I could tell you from a driver standpoint, because obviously I don't get a ton of camera time. I get a little more than I used to, obviously, with you, but I don't get a ton. The Atlanta race with right before the stage, I don't know if you remember, but John
Mhm.
pitted and he was in the back, and I was saving tires the entire time. And me and him ran through the field, and you were telling the story like, hey guys, look, this guy didn't pit and get tires, and this guy did, and they're running the same lap times and they're running through the field. This is what happens, when you save tires. And I think educating everybody on what it is we're doing. Just because a guy's in the back doesn't mean he's
Right.
slow, and everybody's biding their time. It's, on a 200 lap race, doesn't matter if you lead 199 of them, you got to lead that
Yeah.
very last lap. That's what counts. And I think a lot of people, and the only reason I bring this up is because we have a ton of new
Yeah.
guys in the league, ton of new guys, and I think it helps cover stuff with them when they watch the podcast too. So I'm trying to make it as educational as possible.
And I think that's the big thing. I don't ever want anybody to take offense to me not if I don't cover them enough. It's not because they're doing anything wrong, and it's not because I'm doing anything wrong. Everybody's just I have so much time. I only have a specific amount of time each lap to be able to cover what's going on that lap. And with all the
Right.
telemetry that I read and all the things that I'm doing on all the monitors that I have going up here, I'm controlling cameras. I'm controlling what SDK sees. I'm controlling. I'm trying to make sure I know what points are what the point standings are continuously trying to improve on. Who's going to win the stages? Making sure that we focus on sponsors. Make sure that there's a lot that goes into what we do here, but I care about the drivers. And I care like when people, I feel it more so. I mean, I can't say I feel it as much as the driver that gets involved in a caution, but I'm pretty darn close. I wear that on my chest. I wear it on my sleeve, because I want to make sure that the drivers know that, if you're having a bad race or the league's having a bad race, I want to make sure that they know I feel that for them. You know, let's calm it down. Let's get back in. Let's reapproach and let's go. Let's go learn. If I can teach anybody just a little bit about iRacing or a little bit about what the tracks are doing, that's a goal. I want to tell a story each race, but I want to make sure that the drivers know that they do matter. Every single one of them, no matter what league I'm calling, no matter what driver is. If you're on my screen, you matter. If you're in the list, you're on the relative, you all matter. And I try to cover everybody. I try to run through the field as much as I can. It takes some time to do it, but normally what happens is kind of funny here. Every time I start to go through the field, a caution comes out. So yeah. So if
Well,
I need a break, I'm gonna be like, all right, well, back here in the back. No, I don't need a break. That's kind of the way life goes.
so in that, I mean, like obviously, a lot of people don't know what goes onto this. I think I have a pretty good idea because I've been doing computer stuff for a long time. But I don't think most people do because, like you said, you're reading telemetries, you're making sure the sponsors get included, you're making sure whatever's taking place at that particular track's getting covered, and on top of it, it may not be to you, but it is to me. The most important part's always hunting for that story because, like we've been saying this whole time, the whole point of calling a race and in my eyes, the announcer's job is to get people intrigued in what's going on. It's get them dialed in, don't lose focus, blah blah blah. And that probably is one of the hardest things to do because you can't watch everybody all the time. It's not possible. you
Sometimes
know
it's a 5 lap segment. If there's nothing that I can find going on in the telemetry tells me more about what's going on in the race, and who's swapping positions, who's doing what speeds people are running, when they're coming to pit road. That stuff gives me more information than just staring at the screen. And so a lot of the times I'm actually looking more at what's on my upper monitor, which is what I keep all the telemetry on. That's going on a lot. That's going on and telling me more information about what's going on in the race than what I see. When I start looking at the drivers and reading that, that's when I can start to figure out what the story is. It's about it takes 5 laps to develop the segment that you're going to be doing next. And that's kind
right.
of where this whole kit and caboodle kind of molds itself together. Because if you don't start looking at what the driver's going to be doing in the next 5 laps, you're going to be stuck on that lap, and you're just calling a stagnant race. I've caught myself doing that, and it becomes kind of boring, and the views kind of they dictate that, and it becomes you don't want to have a stale race. You want to make sure that it's as exciting as it can be. Now, if there's some dead space where it's like, okay, they're just kind of running right now, that's when we go, hey chat, hey family, how are you doing out there? Which driver are you rooting for? Tell me about your drivers. How was your holidays? How was this? And try to make it engaging for the families of these drivers that are watching, because they get to shout out and say, all right, well, my driver's going to win, or my driver's doing this, or what happened to mine? Can you show this driver? And that's a chance for us to be like, okay, there's a segment. All right, let's click on that driver. Let's make sure we give that focus, because
Right.
I know they're watching. And I know that that's what they want to see in that moment. And then we can figure out what's happening and then go back and readjust.
So when you said you're looking at your telemetry 90% of the time, are you just, I mean, obviously there's different charts to look at, et cetera. Are you just looking for abnormal anomalies, at that time?
So if I see somebody that goes from, and this happens most of the time about 15 laps into a run. We'll say we're in our first 15 laps of the race. It's been green the entire time. And I start seeing somewhere in that telemetry, somebody is running about 5 miles an hour faster, and they just passed 4 drivers within a lap. That right there is that's a moment. Is that driver burning up their tires? What kind of line are they running? Are they running the outside line? What changed in that moment to watch them do that? And so I'll go to them and I'll say, all right, well, this is what's happening here. What I look for is speed offset. I look for lap times. That's the biggest. The lap time is the biggest key. Is somebody running a slower lap time but still making passes on drivers? What kind of line are they running to be able to still make those passes? And so that delivers because in some tracks you can run a slower lap time, but you're running the outside lane and you're still making passes on people, and you're still you may not be as fast as drivers are, but you're gaining ground, and you have more of that momentum that's building in that. So you have to there's so much you're looking at, but that's kind of one of the first things I look at. Who is building momentum and why? Because I can look at that lead pack driver, whoever's on pole position, they can lead every lap of the race, but that guy that's back here in that 15th spot that's been picking them off through a stage, and he's up inside the top 10, and then all of a sudden he's chasing him down toward the end of the race. That's more of an exciting moment. And that's when and you're always
Right.
searching for those drivers they're like, you know what, this wasn't I didn't qualify well. You know how many drivers get out there that have, a 4K, 5K I rating, didn't qualify well, and they're like, all right, now I got to run through the field. But then you got the guy that has a 900 I rating, did the same thing, and he's right there behind him. So
Right.
those are the stories. I've had drivers that don't race officials. There's a driver that was in the race last night that we did the recruitment race for. Rookie class 1350, swept the race. He doesn't race
Oh, wow.
officials. He just races leagues, and he's been on the service for I think 5 years, 6 years, something like that. And I talked to him, and he said, I don't race officials.
Dang. Well, that guy had her down, huh?
He smoked the field.
And it's cool to hear that from you, because it makes more sense, even to me, because I didn't know. I didn't even know that's what you did. Um, I can name a specific race, the Daytona race, that we did in the Truck Series beginning of the year. Because you came to me and I passed 6 cars in the first lap and a half, and you said it right there. You're like, oh, Ryan's moving for some reason. Why? Right out of the gate, and you're like, oh, I bet you it's because he didn't want to be in the middle of the field, and that was the entire purpose of it. It's like middle of the field's always
Yep.
bad when it comes to plate racing, because there's nowhere to go.
And sometimes it's just an educated guess. We've done the math, and it should be somewhere in April on one of the races I'm calling for Chop Shop. That'll be my 1,000th race that I've called. And
Wow,
that will
congratulations.
that's a lot of races. Um, Several 100,000 miles going on here. And but that's a good thing. It's a good thing because when there are certain habits that drivers have, and it becomes apparent more so when you put somebody in a situation that they just don't look comfortable. And on a racetrack, you can tell who's not comfortable. I don't have to go and come into your channel or be on a radio with you if you're on a real circuit to understand if you're uncomfortable or not. The experience in all of this is learning how people are driving, where are they at on the track, where are they at in their situation, what's going on around them. Is it chaos? Because super speedways can, they are chaos. They're controlled chaos for the most part, but in a blink of an eye, it can turn out to be just it can turn out to be a mess. And that's one of the things that
Yep.
I've seen with especially Chop Shop. Chop Shop has worked really well to develop their core piece and their core history of drivers that ever since I came on in that first season and was able to work with learning what the drivers were going to do. And a lot of the drivers we had already seen race in other leagues, but once the core development kind of came together, I was able to watch who was going to be comfortable in what situations. And as I learn more about you and I learn more about these newer drivers, I'm going to be able to know who's going to be comfortable where and in what situations. So if you looked uncomfortable in that moment and you were like, you know what, I'm either going forward or I'm going to the back to wade this out, that's why. It's because in that
Right.
situation, if you have the chance to move and you can be confident in it, I think that's probably the biggest advice I could ever give any driver. Be cool, be calm, be collected. Those are the big three C's there. If you can make a move and you can make it stick and you can do it cleanly, you need to be there. If you can't, ride. Just ride for a moment. Figure out where you need to be, you know.
See on the flip side to that though, and this is just how I'm
Mhm.
wired, obviously. And I tell Thompson this all the time. I'm like, I rather be in comfortable positions. You know, like I'm real. I wouldn't say I'm really good, but I think I'm better at plate racing than I am anything
Mhm.
else right now. I mean, I think that's where I've had my most success. I typically make really good decisions and I'm there in the end. You know, granted, I've made mistakes and you've covered it. Like, you're like, oh, I know exactly what happened. Ryan went to move up and in a blink of an eye, somebody's there. And I mean, it doesn't take long. And I rarely do those mistakes. But I think it's so good to be, you know, in front of your
Mhm.
Nathan Biggarts, your Michael Stricklands, your John Hammonds, your, you know, all the fast guys. If I didn't mention you, I apologize. I think you're all good guys. But I think when you're in front of those guys and those guys are pressing you, they're not pressing you to be an a-hole. They're pressing you to see if you rattle
Mhm.
under pressure. That's the whole point of racing, you know. That's why the Intimidator was called the Intimidator, for crying out loud. Granted, he may have took it a little
Yeah. Oh
farther
yeah. Oh
than,
yeah.
than
Oh
most,
yeah.
but that's how he got his
Yep.
name, right? Um, so I always encourage, especially new guys, like if you find yourself up front, even if you're a lap down, run
Mhm.
them dudes. Run them as hard as you possibly can because, you know, like in a motorcycle, I don't know if you ride motorcycles, but most people, when you're riding in a big pack, your most experienced drivers in that pack are
Mhm.
in the back. And it's because they know how to manipulate their motorcycle to avoid any carnage
Yep.
if need be and help, you know, to pick up the pieces. So, you know, from your perspective, though, you know, you were mentioning, I could tell when a driver's not liking where he's at. Would you be more so to tell this guy, like, hey, man, push it to the limit so you figure out what you're made of? Or slow down, fall back, and sit back and try to learn. Because like I said, I like to put myself in those situations because then it teaches me how to keep my
Yeah,
nerves down.
I would say find the middle ground in there. I wouldn't say push too hard because you're going to overdrive. Don't overdrive your
Yep.
talent, but try to overdrive. I think you should be pushing as hard as you can on your limits, on your terms. Race the track, don't race the drivers, and you'll find yourself looking more at what the drivers are doing and looking at what the track is doing as well, because every track in iRacing has character. Every track in every racetrack around the world has character. How you hit the corner at certain speeds and what landmarks you're trying to look at is going to give you just as much information as what the driver in front of you or behind you is going to do. Don't don't lay over. Never lay over. Run your race. Run the line that you're going to run. If you feel like you are pushing too hard and you get into a corner and you're coming up to that wall and maybe you tap the wall or something like that, that's time to back down because you've overdrove your truck or overdrove your car, or whatever you're in. Um, I would tell drivers to drive within their means. If you feel like in that moment you can push and you can learn something in that moment, then do it. But don't ever just lay over. I would never suggest that. Riding, what I mean by ride is like you were talking about. Soak the information up about what's going on around you. What is the track doing? What is your truck doing or your car doing? What it where are these people passing you if they are passing you? Where can you make that pass if you cool your tires down and you recollect yourself, because it's never over. In that moment you may have hit the wall, but there's a chance for you to be able to rebound and get that and get that time back, and that will only take time if you bring yourself back into your mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and like you said, everybody's seen it 1,000 times. Kyle Larson goes into the pits with a tire down, and then at the end of the race, he wins the race. Whatever the story is, the guy. Long story short, people, no
Yep.
quit. Jerry Culver's probably the perfect
Yep.
example of the no quit rule. That guy just does not quit. It doesn't matter if he's 100 laps down or
Finish the
one.
race.
He just
Yep.
keeps
Finish
going.
finish the race.
Absolutely. And I mean, I'm guilty of it. Our last Rockingham race, I sat in the pits for a good time deciding on whether or not to come back out. And I was just, it's one of those things when you're overly frustrated, you're going to go. If you don't care that you're in the pits and you're frustrated, you're not going to care when you're on the track. There's no reason to ruin everybody else's race just because in your head, it's ruined
Hmm.
for you. So that's also something to always keep in mind. Keep your
Yep.
emotions in check, because racing is a very emotional sport. It's very weird like that. Um, I want to cycle back because I was thinking about this while we were talking. Of you commentating the dirt stuff and you learn the lingo yourself. The one thing I really wanted to touch base because we're talking. Let me start here with the whole story and things that people do, like Ross
Hmm.
Chastain changed the history of Martinsville. Kyle Larson had a slip up. We're not going to get into
Yeah.
what that
Yeah.
slip up was, but we all know what it was. And he got suspended, did something that no one has ever seen done in dirt motorsports ever in
Hmm.
history. You know, um, what like won what 160 some races or some crazy number
Yep.
like that. And I personally believe that he brought pavement and dirt together. I mean, stronger than it's ever been before, and I think he paved the way for like Bell. Bell's a good example. They don't let him run the Chili Bowl often
Right.
anymore, and I think that. And Larson said it here recently in a lot of interviews, like I'm doing it. Why can't these other guys that come from this, do the same
Yep.
thing? So I think he's paving a road for the future. Doesn't matter if he wins another championship, any other races. Like you said, you got to look back at what did he contribute to the sport, not just a race, but what did he contribute overall. And I think that is it's so defining in so many ways. And the reason I bring that any of that up is because the difference between NASCAR and dirt track when it comes to fan base, commentating, pits, drivers is so different on so many levels. I think in in NASCAR, it's everybody's a competitor. Two
Hmm.
engineers don't like each other. The jack guys, everybody's against each other. On the flip side of that, and I'm sure you've seen this many times, I've watched a guy blow his engine, but he was in the show in a sprint car race, and a guy that wasn't in the show pull his motor and throw it in that guy's car so he could run
Yep.
that race. So the story's laid out. Back to you is did you did you notice that how family oriented the dirt track series was, and that maybe it was surprising to you that even asking those questions to the drivers, like what do you mean when you're putting a softer tire on, just how like they're not looking at you like, oh, you're stupid, you shouldn't even be doing this. Instead of, they're educating you, they're explaining, verbatim
So
what it
when you're
is.
new on a track, they know. And that's
Absolutely.
that was the key when I'm walking around with, a press badge on, and that's pretty much what that's what they see. They see a press guy and they see me coming around, and they don't know who I am, and I'm coming around asking questions, just trying to make sure that I know what they're doing, and introducing myself to them as as the new guy in town. And and they, over the course of, a couple of years, they got to know who I am, and they saw me sporadically, and um I'd always have a question for them. I'd always want to know what was coming next, and I would try to follow the drivers even outside of those tracks, because I became a fan. I became a fan of who they were. Um, they were very close to. Now you have people who didn't like each other, um, but they
Right.
respected each other and they respected the rules. And the one thing that I will say that helped that was, for the most part, and I know that I'm kind of picking on Missouri here, because you got Peevely, you've got, the Diamond Dirt Track, you've got, we can go all
Yep.
the way up to worldwide, we can go over to Kansas, we can, we can talk about those tracks, but the officials at those tracks and the people who put those things on, they commanded the respect of the drivers, and they still do to this day. Which is the I will take it to the track owners and all of the people down the line. They're very close. They know each other by first and last name. If there's an issue, they're like, "What's the deal here?" And they get an explanation. I've heard horror stories of other tracks, and I've watched horror stories, of course, out there on the grand old internet that it is the internet. Um, and Everybody's close. The families are close. You know when a mom's in town. When the family's in town, because the drivers just look different. Some, when they're more nervous, it means more to them. Even the young kids. We were talking about Thompson earlier. Um, Alex is from Minnesota, and I think he won his, either came second or won his championship in his hobby stock class, or his, whatever he's running, his little front wheel drive dirt cars. And I forget what he's running. I can't remember. I know it's a Cavalier. So, but I don't remember what class that they call it up there. It's something different than what they call it down here. Um, but he did really well there. Now he's trying to transfer that into iRacing and run the oval circuit. He does decently in dirt, of course, but he he's trying to transfer all that over, and it's a whole different animal. But his family, like, he said, "I'm going to an award ceremony for my dirt for the dirt series that I can't remember if he finished first. Sorry, Alex, if you're watching this back, you finished first or second in that series." But he did that, and that was a huge moment for him. He's a young kid. Again, if he's he's in his 20s, so he's young. He's a kid. Sorry. He's a grown man, but he was very happy about that. He's very, very, enthralled in it. His parents are super excited about it. His parents are excited when he races on a line. Same with Chris Robert's, his family. Absolutely, they're 110% behind him whenever he races. I see Coulter Jr.'s mom out there every single race doing the same thing. Ricky with Strickland out there almost every single race. You've got your cousin that races with you. And those are, it's a family oriented thing. I think regardless of what track you're on, and regardless of where you're at, dirt track racing is a different animal than NASCAR. It is stock car racing is stock car racing. It's always going to be stock car racing, and there's a certain elevation that you have to get yourself to, even with the Arc Menard series, getting up into the KBN series, and doing and taking those steps, getting in to get into from KBN to Arc Menards up into the trucks Xfinity series, getting that ground in. But dirt racing is more intimate. I think there's more passion in dirt racing, because everything that you do impacts, one, the local community, the local ticket sales. Your local merch is going to be worn by the guy that sits at the bar down, right next to you, and is going to be a fan of you based on what you do for that community in that local hometown. So I think that's the biggest thing. You talked about Kyle Larson and his impact on the dirt and the NASCAR community. Now in the Indy community, he's going to run. He's going to run 1,100 miles coming up here this year. First of like 3 or 4 drivers to do it, and he's going to get out and do it. Is he going to win the race? No. He's not going to win the Indy. He might win the Coke 600, but he may not. But I don't know. He might be too tired for that too. But
Well, let's just put this out there. The kid is a freak of nature, so you can't
the
ever count
best
him out.
modern, and I know that I'm a Kyle Larson fan. I was a Dale Earnhardt Jr. fan for the longest time. I was an Alex Bowman fan. When Hendrick, and I've always been a Larson fan because of Larson's driveline has always been unique. It's always been out of this world. And when he was driving for Childress and RCR and doing all the things he was doing over there, incredible race car, incredible driver. He had a big mix up, but it took that to find his drive, and it took that and a new team to put him in a car and put the money behind the car to give him what he needed to win. And so, and he's always done that with himself. He's always had to put himself in those situations to be able to do it. So he's kind of the I screwed up underdog story that really delivered. So that's a great story as well. Ross Chastain is always there I'm going to prove everybody wrong. Kyle Busch was the motor mouth that's kind of just relaxed a little bit. Kyle Busch is one of the best drivers, and I'm not even a Kyle Busch fan, but Kyle Busch is one of the best drivers in NASCAR history. He is the most winning driver in NASCAR history as well when it comes to stock car racing. And he'll surpass numbers again this year, I believe. And I don't like the guy, but I respect him because he's a lot better at this than a lot of people are out there. And same with Joey Logano. I don't like Joey Logano's.
Everybody hated Joey Logano in the
Yeah,
day. Everybody.
I did. It's not that I don't. It's not that I don't like them. Okay, I can't say I don't like these drivers because I do like the drivers. I think they all have their personalities. You have your favorite driver. You have, there's only one driver that I do not like, and we won't even touch that with a 10-foot pole and all of that. So we won't. We won't go there. But I'm a huge. I had the same thing going on over here. I'm a huge. I'm a huge. I'm a huge fan of the motorsport. I really am. There are people out there that like their drivers, and I respect everybody's opinion to like their drivers. But when it comes down to it, I'm still a fan of what the story brings, and the one thing that I see with actual NASCAR is that the narrative is kind of being, the story's not there. NASCAR used to be really good at telling a story. There was always an intimate moment. This year there was about this in 2023 season, there was about 6 races that I found that were good. The one race being the championship race was an amazing race.
Absolutely.
Actually, we go back to the Coke 600. The Coke 600 was an amazing race. The cutoff race to get into the championship, fantastic race. And to see Blaney do what he did was awesome to watch him be able to. And Ryan Blaney, up and coming, another driver out there that I say up and coming. He's a NASCAR champion now, but you never would have thought it. 8 weeks prior to that's where he was going to be sitting there holding that big cup.
Right.
So very happy and very fortunate for Ryan Blaney to be able to be that guy, because he deserves it. He deserves all of the accolades and all the recognition of what he's doing. Super, super, super talented driver. It doesn't matter the manufacturer. Of course, I'm gonna say Chevy because of Hendrick Motorsports, and I'm a fan of Hendrick Motorsports. Less a fan of Jeff Gordon throughout the years, but a lot of respect for Jeff Gordon. He stayed in. Exactly. and another reason why is because he and Dale Earnhardt, he and Dale Earnhardt used to have their old rivalry back in the day. But the one thing that Jeff Gordon has said, and I watched a podcast not so long ago with him taking a visit to Senior's Trophy or Senior's statue over in North Carolina, and he said, he always gave me a lot of crap, but he wouldn't have done it if he didn't care. And that's I think that's where the intimacy in that generation is what NASCAR is missing today.
You know, it's funny that you said that. I mean, we're kind of going a little left
Sorry.
field here, but I do want to touch base. No, I do want to touch base on it a little bit, because I disagree to a certain extent. I think the previous year, there was great storylines just because you had the Harvick and Chase Elliott
Yeah.
dynamic going on. You know, um, Bristol, they had a mix up. Larson ended up
Yep.
winning that race because Chase is like, hey, where's Larson? Because Harvick
Yep.
took me
Yep.
out. And then they went to the Roval and
Got punted.
he got into Elliott again. And and Elliott ran through the field. And the second he got to him, Harvick was driving in his rear view and slid right off into the wall. So, I mean, I don't think I would disagree in that aspect just because that previous year there was a great
Mm-hmm.
storyline involved.
2 seconds. Little miss.
Um,
Hold on. Just a second.
it's his daughter's birthday today, so he's doing the dad thing.
All right. Sorry about that. She
No,
we
no.
we have lunch coming up here pretty soon. So
How old is
10.
she turning?
She is 10.
Hey, you only
That's
turn
right.
10 once.
That's right. She has a pink birthday cake for all of that. Everything that she had. She's our youngest, and she's going to be spoiled. So that's a real thing in real life. And actually, hopefully all of our kids feel spoiled just a little bit. You know.
We can kind of spiral out of control a little
Mm-hmm.
bit here, because we are on the family conversation. And you talked about your brother passing away. Um, and I do know one of the things that you take a tremendous amount of pride in is the Toys for
Mm-hmm.
Tots races, and you do it in his honor, which is super sweet. Um, I just wanted to touch base on you. When did obviously you're always going to carry your brother on your
Mm-hmm.
shoulder type of thing. I mean, I've never had a relative pass away, so I can't talk like I know what I'm talking about, but I'm assuming. What do you ever think about doing, other events, kind of like the Toys for Tots, or charity events, I guess is the safe word to use, um, for what you do to push out awareness, for specific issues, like autism's a big one that a lot of people do, et cetera, et cetera.
So there is. So Toys for Tots has kind of been our holiday thing, and the reason why we choose Toys for Tots during the holiday season, of course, is for the cause. But my brother was a big advocate for children, uh, from abused families and whatnot. The Giving Tree, or the tree that you see at Walmart, where you go and grab families. He'd go grab 10 or 12 of them and buy things.
What
That
a guy.
He's a much better man than I could ever have dreamt of being. He passed away at 22. He was in the National Guard, and he deployed, came home, passed away in his sleep. Like a light switch. It's a tragedy. He was gone, taken way too early. I miss him dearly every single day, and that's the reason why my daughter is actually named after him. So absolutely an amazing man, and would give his shirt to anybody. He would give his shirt off his back to anybody. But Christmas was his holiday. He was jolly. He was the guy that wanted to make sure kids had Christmas. And we're the same way. We grew up in a kind of an unfortunate circumstances. My parents divorced when we were younger, and my mom, pretty much from the time that I was 13, raised myself and my sister, my younger brother, all our cousins were living with us. There was a lot going on in our household. We were very much a moving household, and you know, he was always the kind of that bright twinkle. You know what I mean? And just a good solid kid, and I will always miss him. And but we always do that during the wintertime. I did it a little earlier this year because I wanted to try to hit a bigger goal, and actually kind of met the same goal that we did last year. People were just giving less this year because of what the economy's doing. Of course, we won't even touch on that because I don't like politics.
Right.
Um, eh, but when it comes to things that we do raise money for, Mission 22, that's something that we do. Um, and then we try to hit autism twice a year, but it kind of depends. That always fluctuates on what my sister is actually doing, because we try to raise money for a couple of different organizations, and it kind of depends on where my sister's at in that, because my niece has autism, so we want to make sure that we hit those on the those nails on the head at specific times. So I'd like to do more coordinated things like that, but I want to make sure that like, if I'm going to start doing more charitable events, that we try to build them up, because this year it was a great thing to do over the course of 6 or 7 weeks, because it gave everybody a little chance to be like, okay, I have $5 here. I don't have $100. I don't have this, but here's $5, or here's $10, or here's this. And it allowed the drivers to get out there and race and have a good time too, as far as the iRacing aspect of things go. And then of course I did a 39-hour stream that was absolutely exhausting. And that turned into a great time too. But I'm always there to help. use I would love to be the philanthropist that I wish I could be. I wish I had millions of dollars to just say, here, how can this help? Because I think that's the ultimate goal of any father, is to be able to say, here's what I can provide for my kids. But then as a content creator, as somebody that is out here that has any kind of voice or any kind of influence in the world, you want to be able to say, here's a little more, and I wish that I had a goal that I was like, you know what, if we hit $3,000, awesome. We hit $2,271. And that is, for a little bit, I was like, man, I didn't hit $3,000. But then I had to be like, dude, we hit
Right.
$2,271, 53 cents.
That's a lot. That's a lot of
That's,
Christmas presents.
that's a lot. That goes a long way. And that's what's great about it too, is that all that money that goes a long way to give all of these families a chance at having just a little bit. And they can stretch, and Toys for Tots and all of these organizations that are out there can stretch these dollars. They can buy in bulk from wherever and be able to give more. That's a lot of money to be able to help. It's not the $10,000 or the $100,000 that we all want to be able to give to these organizations. I would love to give more to cancer research. I would love to give more to, combating childhood diabetes. I would love to give more to, especially Mission 22. I mean, that's a big proponent for me. Prior service member or not, 22 veterans is 22 the 22 every 22 seconds. We don't want to have to deal with that. That's not okay. Or,
Right.
I'm sorry, every 22 minutes, not every 22 seconds. That's not okay to me. So there's a lot of good that you can give in the world. And I would love to be able to do more with that. It's always about timing. It's always about making sure that we have the one, I would make sure I have the resources to be able to do it, because a lot of this I put my own money into, just to make sure that we have something. One, I've learned in the streaming world, you got to have something that they're gonna be able to benefit from. Not just the drivers, but your viewers. You want to make sure that you have something to attract the attention, because you can't just. It feels like anymore, you can't just say, hey, give with your heart, and you always got to have
Right.
something there for them. So, I would love to. I would love to do as much as I can. because that's what that's what this is all about: teaching, learning, loving, and I say at the end of every stream, be good, be safe, be kind to one another. It's not just a routine. It's something I live by. I have two things I live by: to be good, to be safe, and to be kind. Uh, this is what I want for my kids. It's what I want for myself, and I want everybody out there to feel like that matters to them. Um, and then, of course, my work ethic. I have so many irons in the fire, and I feel like I'm never getting anything done. But the other thing I live off of is you cannot have $1 million dream on a 9 to 5 attitude. My $1 million dream is philanthropy. It really is. I know Mr. Beast is the primo example of everybody wants to have the discussion about. Is that Jimmy is a young man that put a lot of time and effort into his craft to do what he enjoys and to be able to give back. I'm much older, but that's what I want to do. And I want to be able to be that kind of person to be able to give back as much as I can. So that's the behind the scenes of why Signature Esports is still here, because that's what we want to do. I don't make a ton of money doing this, that's for darn sure, but that's what we want to do.
Well, and I know, the thing about Jimmy is he was making videos for 8 years before anything
13
happened.
years old for his first video.
Right. So, I mean, that is a perfect example. And I think that is, they always, growing up, that, teachers and people around you, they're always telling you, you could be whatever you want to be. And some people think that, like, oh, I can't ever drive a NASCAR. Well, where do you think William Byron came from?
Willoughby came right from iRacing. Yep.
I mean, it came right
Yep.
from iRacing. I mean, so, and then they got I can't Juan, is it
Yep.
Juan? I can't remember, off of I can't even think of
Yeah,
it.
Gran
Gran
Turismo.
Turismo.
And then you got Nick Lights, who just he started in the truck series last year.
Yep,
He actually drove in my very first league that I broadcasted for myself. Signature
that's
Esports.
awesome.
Actually, I think he won the Xfinity Series championship for our series that I called a couple years ago. Absolutely fantastic guy, and just great. And he's a hell of a driver and deserves every opportunity that's presented to him. And anybody, I can't say everybody's going to be a NASCAR driver. I can't. It takes a lot
Right.
of talent, and there are kids on this simulator, folks, that put me to shame. There are 15, 16-year-olds out there, whatever the legal age is now for iRacing. I think it's 16 with your own credit card, or 13 with parents' permission, or something like that. Whatever it is, I can't remember now. But but you've got these kids on here that have so much talent that it blows my mind that their reflexes and the reactions of what they do. You talk about Jerry Culver's daughter in a sprint car, in her little midget sprint that's out there. That thing, and she's out there running these little tracks and having a blast. That takes talent, it takes drive, and it takes development. And was as much as it's a cliche thing to say, the more seat time you put in, the better that you can be. Maybe you don't become a NASCAR driver, but maybe you become a Coca-Cola Series driver and have that aspiration to be able to do that. The only way that you do that is by putting yourself in the seat.
Well, and I mean, just like the
Mm-hmm.
ARCA series, they're still
Yep.
paid to
Oh yeah.
race. I mean, just because they're not in the big show with the big name guys, these guys are still
Yep.
making a living doing what they love. Just like, you broadcasting and, looking at the Mr. Beast thing, who's to say, you might be in your 50s and rolling in millions and millions of dollars, but you can't put an age
No,
on stuff
no,
like
and I
that. It
never
just,
would.
not in today's
And
day and
and I
age.
and I never would. I mean, the end all to be all of all of this is just to. We didn't even get into actually how I started iRace Brusque doing this, but
That was actually my
yeah.
next question, is
So
how you transferred the actual racing to this.
and a good segue then, because that's how this kind of all evolved. Um, it was COVID. My business shut down. My photography and printing business. We were in the heart of the COVID era, and we had to shut our business down, and we had to lay off our employees. We had to do. I mean, we shut down just like the whole country did. Um, and we had a little savings. We had things that we could work off of, and we were fine for a little while. And I had gotten back into iRacing and logged back in and got the wheel out and was like, I'm gonna run some races. And lo and behold, and somebody had recognized me, recognized my name. They're like, "Are you the Jason that's over in Osage Beach, Missouri?" And we had lived at close to Osage at the time. And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "Are you the Tucker Shucker guy?" I was like, "Yeah." So he was, which is probably the most known commercial that I get teased about over here at the Lake of the Ozarks, because when that first commercial came out, I had actually worked at Tucker Shuckers and I used to imitate it, and then they used my voice in one of the commercials, and it was a whole funny situation. Anyway, long story short, they asked me to broadcast a race, and this was at the time it was called a NASCAR iRacing series, and this is it was literally just a favor. Like, "Hey, we'll pay you $10 if you can do it." I'm like, "Oh, $10, man, it's $10." But you know, I had my
Right.
mic, I had everything that I did from my actual business, which is we still do photography, we still do voiceovers. Signature Media is our business. Signature photography printing is what we do. Um, that's what I do for a regular living, and that's what helps provide everything else in life. And when it comes to being able to just kind of step up and do that, I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. I didn't have the PC at the time to be able to, let alone drive it, at home. All my work
Right.
PC, everything was at work. Everything was at the office. That was where all the good stuff was. I just had a little gaming PC to be able to play World of Warcraft and iRace a little bit. Um, but in 2 days, I figured out how to run ATVO, how to set up OBS, and how to set up my microphone from a condenser microphone to a digital input to be able to have a cloud filter and put everything back into it. Uh, and I called my first race. And once I called that first race, they were like, "Can you do it again next week?" And I was like, "Sure, I can do it a couple." And so I asked Jess if that was going to be the case, and it was on Tuesday nights. And Tuesday nights have always been my most popular night when it comes to racing. It's the one night that I can never not have a race on. Since the dawn of this entire extravaganza, and at the time, I wasn't even a platform. I just did it on my personal Facebook page, and I sent the link out, and I said, "Here you go." And they're like, "Well, what do we call you?" And I was like, "Well, my company's name is Jay's Signature Photography and Printing, and we were, LLC to Signature Media. That's what it was." So I was like, "I don't know if this ever becomes a thing, we might as well make it a signature thing." So and so
Right.
Signature Esports was the next stream that we did, and that was May 1st of 2020. Uh, and
That's
that
awesome.
was that was it was an incredible day.
Do you think this is something that you're going to end up doing for a long time? Is it, you think it maybe just a stepping stone? Where are your thoughts with broadcasting on iRacing, for the future?
So, and to kind of just be blunt and honest and just upfront, iRacing has to make some heavy, 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 heavy marketing terms, or something. They have to do something. Um, the content creators out there that are doing their job, LSR TV, we've got Noma TV, myself, we've got Podium that's out there. We've got a lot of different broadcast capabilities and iRacers, and people out there that are trying to bring the impact of this esports organization, so to speak, because this is what this is. Regardless of what you think of iRacing broadcast, it is an esport. These are drivers that are competing. These are people that are out there putting their money on the line, putting their time on the line to compete for whatever championship they're competing for, whatever league they're competing for, whatever they're doing. It is an esport, and iRacing puts big emphasis on the Coca-Cola series, and they put big emphasis on the Contender series, and we are the little guys putting the emphasis on everybody else. And iRacing, as it stands, needs to do. They need to do something to put. I want to call it. I do want to call the iRacing for as long as iRacing is going to be viable. I would love to call other esports as well, because there are other platforms that I've learned how to call. CS:GO. We've looked at Valorant tournaments. We've looked at um, uh, I have to go through the list of all the things that we've done, but um, there's there's a ton out there that we could actually, as signature esports, could be. iRacing is the one thing that I will forever be grateful for, and I will run this thing until iRacing is no more. And I have a feeling that is always going to be the case, and I'm 110% fine with that. Absolutely 110% fine with that. I play other games. I have other interests, and I'm always gonna showcase that, and I'm always gonna have that in our Discord and be able to game with friends. And but when it comes to iRacing is the platform. I say it all the time. iRacing is the platform for sim racing. It is the number one sim racing platform in the world. And the reason why is because it is the most realistic feeling. It is the most innovative, and they're constantly changing and evolving to give you the most realistic performance out of their simulator. So why shouldn't we continue to try to push that and help them as broadcasters and commentators and drivers and leagues to showcase this is an awesome thing to do? So yeah, absolutely. I'll run this thing until it goes dry.
And I wanted to touch base on that because, like you were saying, you're into
Mhm.
esports. It's not just iRacing. iRacing's what got you out of a hole when you're in a hole. Me, just broad
Mhm.
saying it, right? Um, so obviously you got a loyalty to that, and rightfully so. And that tells everybody your integrity as a human being. That's how I look at things. Like, I have more respect for you now. Not that I didn't have enough anyways, but I have more respect from you now, knowing that it's an integrity thing at this point. It's like, listen, I'm loyal to what's helped me in the past, which is awesome. Because when Twitch first came out, Dota was
Yep.
the number one broadcasted video game
And
on the
still,
planet.
it's still
I
top
mean, it
five.
was yeah, I mean, I don't even know what the hell that game is. And this has come from a guy that played StarCraft, and it's similar
Yeah.
to it, but not, and so it's cool that you say that. And, I hope, I really do. I hope for you that, something like that takes off, whether it's Call of Duty, Apex Legends, whatever the game is, it doesn't matter. Um, because you said, like, no matter what, I'm going to be here for iRacing. And, so I'm going to assume, like, hey man, if this isn't my primary income, it's just fun money at the point, and it's going to help you drive just to be a better person in general. And obviously, you got a roof you have to put over your
Yep.
little girl's head, so that's
We've
really cool,
I've wanted to quit a couple of times, and I almost have. I'm not going to say it's not been the easiest route. This has been difficult. This has been the largest learning curve as a grown man that I've had, other than having kids. Um, if it wasn't for for Jess, I wouldn't. This wouldn't be a thing. She's always given me the other advice in life is do what makes you happy and make sure that you do the right thing, by you know showing your integrity and making sure that um, we as a family are collectively fine. Um, this has paid our bills. at times when we needed to pay our bills during the off season, because we're still rebuilding. There's still a lot of things that we're doing to, I put it in our Discord not too long ago. You know, this is not. I have to think about this as a business, because it is a business. Um, but at the end of the day, I don't want this to consume me as a business, like the actual business consumes me. Um,
Right.
this is supposed to be fun for the drivers. It's supposed to be fun for me. And if I just feel like I want to get out and just stream and just enjoy myself, and I should be able to do that as well, because Signature Esports is a platform, but I've created a platform for people to be able to be comfortable with, and to be wholesome, and to do that. We've donated and we've given a lot. We've had to learn a lot from mistakes that I've made, from mistakes that have been that I've had to learn from in this platform. Who to trust, who not to trust, who to you know who's had your back, who doesn't have your back. There's a lot into this that I didn't realize. And I'm not talking about people. I'm talking about businesses. I'm talking about what platform you should be focusing on. I have 18,500 followers on Facebook, but my views are better on YouTube. You know what I mean? So there's so many
Right.
more different aspects about this, that it's more than just plugging in a microphone and turning on a race and hitting the start button to go live. There's so much more to this than and it's a tough cookie, man.
And it's I mean, it still says a lot, especially, you mentioned, like your wife has your back. And I know there's a lot of people out there that I don't want to bag on wives because I'm not a woman hater.
Mm.
Obviously, I'm married, you know. Um, but I also have a wife just like you. And I took a loan out to build my rig, which was roughly
Mm.
$12,000 on a whim. And it's just like, do what makes you happy. And the support that you have behind that is just, it's leaps and bounds. Um, and like you said, when it comes to making strategic, I want to use the words right. I would say strategic business decisions. Um, and maybe you're not like this, but I am, and I think Hammond is too. Is we grew up in an era that if you put your foot in your mouth, it
Yep,
is
you
what
own
it
it.
is. Like, sometimes you speak out of place, and nothing is more honorable than a handshake contract. You know, because that person's going to say. And the problem with the whole esports thing is you're not meeting these
No,
people face
no.
to face. It's all over a phone call or whatever, and it's hard to base somebody's integrity, just upon their
Yeah, we've
voice.
and that's the thing. I'm not going to say that I've not made people upset. I'm not going to say that I've not, there's leagues out there that I've called have been amazing leagues that I only called one season for. There are leagues out there that I had dropped in the middle of the season because it just wasn't a good fit. And that's not to say that I would never call them again. It just, at that time, you know, sometimes even I make mistakes. Sometimes when there's leagues that I regret that I ever said no to. There are leagues that I wish I didn't say yes to. Because and not because they did anything wrong. Some of it was because of me. Some of it was because of timing and life, and trying not to overbook myself, but did overbook myself. And now I've got a happy medium where I know what I can do when I can do, and it's taken me 4 years to figure that out. It will be 4 years in May, and it's taken me that long to figure this out. And it's never I will never say it's the league's fault. I will take 110% on my shoulders to say that there's are things that I should have learned and should have figured out in the long run.
And I debated on bringing this up because I wanted to talk to
Mm.
you man to man. Um, because obviously it's it, trying to choose the right words here. It's hard for you to grow as a broadcaster which you're huge already, but you can
Right,
always be
right.
bigger, right? It's hard for you to grow when a lot of your broadcasting is done in Chop Shop. And what I have mentioned in the past, and obviously it's nothing to even really worry about now, is trying to get Joe into more of your positions throughout our league because he is a protege of
Mhm.
yours, right? I mean, you've practically taught him most of what he knows about, running SDK,
Mhm.
running all that stuff. In order so you can go host or broadcast other races, because what helps you helps
Right.
us. We sponsor Signature
Mhm.
Esports as a league. So if you're doing other people's leagues and they see Chop Shop, that
Mhm.
just helps us. A. B, it helps you because you give, not to get into the whole money situation, but you take care of us.
Mhm.
Best way to put it. And obviously there's always more out there. What are your thoughts on something like that? Because I don't want to. I'm not
Oh,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah,
push
no, no,
anything,
no.
or I don't want to look bad in any way. And I think maybe John will yell at me for
No.
even saying something stupid like this. But I'm always looking. I'm a futuristic person. I'm always looking at like where we're at and where we going and how do we get
Right.
there, right? So how do you gain that personal growth? And I'm talking on your end, not just on ours. For futuristic, like, have you ever thought about calling less chop shop racing and kind of venturing out more for other leagues to kind of broaden the fan base? What you
No.
would,
And it's not because I couldn't call other places or do anything. I would actually and no take note if any other league is out here going to watch this because they're going to watch this. Well, I'll be sharing it out there as well. But
yep,
um, I would call 5 days of Chop Shop for consistency. It is quality over quantity. It was always quality over quantity. It has always been quality over quality. I will say that as many times until I'm blue in the face. I would rather care about my stream more than make all the money in the world. Um, and when it comes to the following is there and will still be there as long as I continue to do what I'm supposed to do. I will grow as much as the world will allow me to grow as I do. If I want to grow more, I can throw some more into marketing or I can do more to do that. There's things that I can do. I could be as big as I want to be if I wanted to throw a bunch of money into it, but it would change the dynamic of what we do. Um, it would change the
right,
race. It would change the broadcast. It would change the personability of it. I could charge more, and and that would force Chop Shop to make a move. You know what I mean? And I wouldn't want that because that, believe it or not, I used to call everything on Chop Shop, and then leagues have finances just the same as I have finances, just the same as everybody else does. And so at some point, if I'm calling every bit of the racing that's going on a Chop Shop, that's a lot of money that they're putting out. And if they can do some of it in house, when Joe was starting to get in there and do that, at first I was like, well, they just took a day away from me. But then I got to thinking about it. I was like, that's okay because that wasn't a day that was as good on views. And so they are trying to build something themselves. And everything kind of
right.
came into the conversation. And once we had the conversation, everybody kind of had the same idea and the same game plan. Because my goal is never to say, Chop Shop, you're not good enough for Signature Esports, and I should always be good enough to call whatever league wants me to call them. It's not that money talks; it's that the racing talks, and I would like to think that um, the relationship is more valuable as well, and the respect that I have for Stryker, for John, for all the drivers and the admins, and yourself, of course, for coming on board with Chop Shop. I similar with the Chop Shop Racing Series to others. The very first full league that I called was the No Limit Thunder Series, and I will remember every driver there. Anthony Crownover was one of those first drivers that was the first league I ever called. I called a couple of races for the NASCAR iRacing Series as the first couple, but I got a league 2 weeks after that. And
That's
that was the
awesome.
first league I ever called. And every one of those drivers were amazing, very talented drivers, and a whole different set of ball games, a whole different set of circumstances, a whole different track setup than To see what iRacing's done in 4 years is amazing. But what I see out of Chop Shop and what Chop Shop is doing is everything that I could have ever imagined a league. It's like a good combination of a whole bunch of leagues that I've ever called, and they're trying to put it all together, and they're doing things the way that they see fit, and are trying to innovate every single season to be a little bit different, so that way it keeps drivers interested in coming back, and maybe they get a new influx of drivers, and so even if I just call one series, or say they do outgrow me, and say they say, you know what, we're going to just go Chop TV for the entire series, I would never be disheartened of that. That means I put them in a position to succeed as a commentator, as the voice of, as we've called it in the past, as the voice that I've been able to help them do. I've helped been able to be a part of putting them in the right direction. They've done all the legwork when it comes to running the league. I just got to be able to be a humble voice for Chop Shop through our platform, and that's huge to me. It's just I'm just a growing stone for everybody else. I know that I charge to call, but I'm charging for this. I'm charging for my voice and the software and the wear and tear on the PC. I'm not charging for the extra. I'm not charging for the extra incentives. I mean, this is far more expensive than people can get. I mean, just to replace the one PC was almost $3,000, and that's to be able to do all of this, and that takes away half of what we make over 3 months.
And I'm glad you said it the way you said it, because the, the only thing I would want to critique on, I guess, would be like, Chop Shop outgrowing you, because I mean, I don't think either one's going to outgrow either one. I mean, I think you're always on top of your game. So kudos to you. But in the same aspect, obviously, if I know Chop Shop's finances because I play a major factor in it. I mean, if we could hire anybody we wanted and be fine. But like you said, it's an
Mm.
integrity thing at that point. John very well. Striker very well. We rather, whether it's less money, more money, the money's irrelevant at the point. Everything costs money. I mean, just to run Chop Shop, and a lot of guys don't know this, and I know the finances are a public thing, but I mean, it costs us roughly $10,000 a year, maybe more, maybe a little less, just to operate. That includes taking care of you, taking care of RC, you know, whatever else we're paying for, they're doing a raffle right now of the
Mm.
iFlex. So, I mean, everything is insanely costly. So I fully understand where you're coming from to a T, and I'm glad the integrity part isn't
No,
one
no,
sided.
no, no.
It goes both ways with Signature Esports and
And it
Chop
always
Shop.
has. It
I
always has, and it has with every league that I have, except for a couple. There's been some extenuating circumstances on some leagues that when I feel frustrated because I have to. There's a platform here. There's things that I have to look out for, just like the leagues have things they have to look out for too. Here recently, just I say recently, a couple of it was right at the beginning of December. I called a race that I completely regret calling, and I was for the first time I was toxic in my own stream, and and that's not like me. That's not who I am. That's not, and I'm capable of making mistakes. Again, this has been a huge learning curve for me for the course of the last 4 years, and even to this day, I'm still capable of making mistakes, and I did, and I pulled the video down as a recourse of that, and apologized profusely to the league, and um, there was it was a bad deal, and I'm capable of making mistakes, but I'm also capable of saying, you know what, that's my fault. I should never have done that. It absolutely 110%, and it'll forever live there because I still have the video. The video is private. It's not taken down. It's private.
I'm kind of curious about watching this
So
video now. It's because I mean, you're such a common, cool,
yeah, I
collected
was
guy.
I was pretty mad. Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, yeah, it would be weird to hear you upset, because I mean, we've only known each other a couple months, but I feel like I've known you my whole life. And that's why we can cut each other so much crap from time to time. But it's weird for you to even say that. It really is. And you are the kind of person, like, when stuff rolls downhill, you're kind of like John.
Yep.
Come and talk to you, man to man, work it out, figure out a solution, how to stop it from ever
Mhm.
happening again. So, but you're only human, so I understand fully.
It's
And I hope
Yeah,
everybody else
it's
does
the
too.
first time it's ever happened, and it'll be the last time it happens. I hopefully, knock on a big old stab of wood there, but it happens. I mean, it's no different than watching any content creator get out there, and when you've had enough, you've had enough.
So,
And it
are you calling races for this league ever again?
yes, because I'm a better man than that. So
How'd it
that's
go?
that's kind of the way things have rolled. I'm actually still calling races for the league. It's still part of it. And and that's and that
Fantastic.
and that's what it takes. It takes saying, you know what, I screwed up. We've had shipping issues with merch that I've had to refund. And because no fault to me, no fault to anybody else. But they still get their merch. I still make sure they get their merch. Those are the kind of little things that go a lot further than just like, I can be mad and angry all I want, but it doesn't fix the problem. The problem is
Right.
they're expecting an output and they didn't get their output, so I'm going to make sure it happens. And that's part of what this is. This whole thing is all about making sure that we are there for our community. We're there for these drivers. We're there for the platform. We're there for every league that we call for. Chop Shop has been a huge part of the last almost 2 years of our streaming career. We went from 4 of their series down to 2 of their series, which is and that's fine, absolutely fine, because it did allow me to pick up some other series and get to know some more drivers. And it's always about introducing more drivers to more leagues and to be able to intermingle everybody to have that next big passion project that everybody wants to do. And Chop Shop runs 5 different series. That's I couldn't do all 5 series because I love road series racing, but I'm terrible at calling it. I love it. I love to watch it. I love the commentators that are really good at it, but I am awful at IMSA series. I'm awful at the open wheel stuff, because I just don't have the track knowledge. It would take, again, more time, more effort to be able to be proficient at that. Would I like to have somebody on Signature Esports that is good at that? Yes. And this has been the last year, I think, has been coming down to the point where I have been the face and the voice of this business and this platform. Um, and Signature Esports is supposed to be an esports platform, but it is meant for iRacing. It is meant for iRacing first and foremost, and I know that, and that's what I want. Um, but I do want to be able to have more than just myself now, because it has taken a lot of time. It has taken a lot of effort. Now it has to take some trust, and I think that's the only thing that's keeping me away from saying, all right, I need 5 commentators. We're going to split up our platforms. We're going to put a road series here. We're going to put road commentators here. We'll put dirt commentators here. We'll do this. The only thing that's stopping me from doing that is the trust, and to make sure that I can have commitment. That means I'm going from being behind the microphone to booking and to making sure that people are where they need to be. And
Right.
that's a step. That's a big step, that I'm not ready for yet. So, it is a goal, but it's not something that I'm ready for yet.
Well, I mean, I think that's a phenomenal goal, because I didn't know, where you saw Signature going, when it come to the esports, the media aspect of it. Because I mean, I think that'd be awesome. You got guys doing Call of Duty, you got guys doing iRacing, you got guys doing different games, and not you're not the kind of guy to sit
Yeah.
back and just watch. I mean, I can tell you that right now. You want your hands on everything. It's your baby. You should. So that I mean, that's I hope you get there. And I did want to touch base, with Chop Shop giving so many races to you versus what they were before. Even though it's 2 days a week or 3 days, I don't know what it is anymore. I know it's at least
Three.
two, but
Three.
they're the two. They're three. They're our most
Yeah.
important series. That's where we have 9 times out of 10, like our truck series. We would not have anybody else broadcast our truck series other than you, just for the simple fact that we got 30 plus trucks in there. There is a lot going on, and it's on Tuesday nights as well. And so we
Mm-hmm.
got that locked in. Why would we ever want to give that up? You know what I mean?
Tuesdays is the
So,
best night.
not, right. So, I mean, just so I mean, not that you need peace of mind, but if
Oh.
you did, that's why, man. You got the most important races anyways, and that's all that really matters anyways. The dirt series is just firing off to the point where, we're starting to charge for people,
Mm-hmm.
running the series. Church is, in charge of that entire series, when it comes to drivers. I took care of the RC, or Striker took care of the RC. Um, I don't, is Joe broadcasting it? I think
No,
Joe's
I'm
doing the
doing.
dirt
I'm
stuff.
doing. So I've got
Oh, you're doing it? Okay.
the super late model series. They're the SLM series on Sundays. I have the dirt series on Mondays and I have the truck series on Tuesday. I have you Sunday, Monday, Tuesday.
Okay. Well, and that late
Yeah.
model's going to
Yeah.
take
Oh
off
yeah.
too.
Yeah. We when we were talking about it, because so we have 9 broadcasts over 6 days. The only day I have off right now is Friday. And we're double heading. I'm sorry. So that's no, it's eight broadcasts, not 9 yet. 9 would be Friday. So 8 broadcasts over 6 days. So we have super lates for you guys on Sundays with 802 following up behind that. Mondays is the dirt series for you guys. Then the truck series on Tuesday. Wednesday is going to be the Winston Throwback Series. Thursday's the Signature Esports Truck Series. And then Saturdays are going to be the Reaper Racing Series, which is another dirt series. And after that, it's a late night series for Heart to Heart. So there's a lot going
Yeah.
on over here. So when I say that I'm not ready for it, I'm getting close to being ready for it. Um,
Right.
but they pay for me to be here,
What?
and I appreciate that. Like, it's not just money. People forget it, but take the money aspect out of this. If I could do this for free and just live off ad revenue and all that stuff, and then I would absolutely do it. This is literally, it kind of pays for itself, but it kind of pays a little bit of the bills. So money aside,
Oh yeah.
it's not about the money. It's about what I build and what I'm able to have as relationships. Because I've had some of the best. I have some of the best friends out of this, and I've never met them.
Well, and I mean it follows forever, and I think, like John and Stryker, they make extremely difficult decisions
Mm-hmm.
easy, and they have a real good eye for, I won't say up and comers, but for for somebody like me. Like, I'm in a very privileged position that I'm in at a very short
Right.
amount of time. And I think they're good at reading people. I guess that's the only thing I could come up with off the top of the dome. So, obviously I'm forever grateful. One of the things I wanted to ask is, what do you see in other leagues that you think Chop Shop could potentially benefit from?
See, here's the thing. As of lately, and now I do have 2 new leagues starting, so that's a whole different thing. What I have seen lately is I've seen leagues adopt things that Chop Shop is doing as a result of conversating with me about what Chop Shop's doing. So it's kind of right now. and I mean right now until I get more familiar with some of these newer leagues that we have coming on, um, they're really having the stepping stone for what leagues are trying to do. They don't have it perfect, but they have a lot of good pieces, and some of that's the claim system, some of that's the peer reviewed poll voting that is something that I talk about on stream. I talk about some of the things that the rules and of what people do. Um, what I would say is that um, the I mean I think the only thing that I would say would be an improvement is to go one way or the other with your stages, and I think that's as far as the oval side goes. Um, the dirt needs to either always have a consi or don't have a consi, because that will if you have three drivers in the consi, it needs to be skipped. Just everybody carries over. If there's no cutoff for it, then just run into the feature. Not that I want to shorten the races up. We could run back to back races if you wanted to. I'd be okay with that too. Or back, if you want to run wing sprints and then you want to run late models, let's do it. Let's do them both back to back. We can do it that way if they wanted to. I'm fine with that. It's not about shortening a race up. It's just about keeping the flow going and keeping the drivers busy, because the longer they sit, the less that you have going on, for the dirt side. But outside of that, I mean, the rules package is always going to be evolving. That's every league. And I think that is something that John and you guys and Stryker always keep evolving your rules package, because there's always going to be a loophole, and there's always going to be somebody that's going to be trying to exploit something for the gain. That's what racing is. I mean, stock car racing has had cheaters in it
Yep.
from the very beginning. It's never not going to happen. Somebody's going to try to bend the rules or put a piece of tape somewhere that they shouldn't. Um, and that'll go everywhere. But as far as the league goes, there's a good solid foundation, and I could never sit here and say that there's one thing that you absolutely need to change or absolutely you need to improve on, because you're already doing that. And I think that's the big history of leagues, is that they're constantly always trying to find the right rules package or find the right situation that you need to put yourself in. Maybe just, I mean, like little suggestions right there, but those are probably things that they're already thought of. What do we do with the stages? Well, we went down to, one stage for the truck series to keep things rolling. Okay, well, are we doing one stage at certain length, you know, or do we need to go to two stages to kind of change things up? Are we going to lengthen races? Are we going to shorten races? What are we doing to keep the races more interesting and that thing? So they're probably already thinking of that, and you guys are probably already talking about what you're going to be even doing for the next season. So, um, that
Yep.
I don't think that there's much, if anything, right now that I see that needs to be changed. Other than, I take that back, the weird mileage in your schedule. It's a little like each race is a little, I don't know, maybe just a little off, like running certain laps at certain tracks and how long. And it's not about length. It's about, are you going to run 45 or 55 laps at a 2.5 mile road course when, that's a lot of wear and tear on the drivers, when 45 laps would accomplish the same thing without a stage break. There's lots of those kinds of things. So maybe a little fine tuning on the schedule, as far as the laps on
Okay.
on the schedule. What kind of lap time? What kind of laps you're going to be putting on the drivers, and what you're going to be putting on yourself, for the truck series. Everything else, I think everything else is fine. I would say just the schedule as far as laps go.
Well, I think that's great criticism. I wouldn't even call it criticism. Just great knowledge to know, because I ask everybody the same thing. You,
Oh, hold
oh,
on. Dang old
Discord.
Discord. Hey James, we're in the middle of a interview here, real quick. Little podcast. What are you doing, Mandarin? Okay, he's good. Okay, he's here. He's still here.
All right. But it's good to, it's good to hear that stuff. And obviously I know John and Stryker take everything to heart when it comes to, that stuff. But it also tells us that we're doing a good job because I guess the safest way to say it's we're the innovative factor right now, that everybody else is building off of. So it's cool to be the league leader, when it comes to that aspect, because it tells us that we're doing everything right. And that's great to hear. And obviously our time's running out. I always like to keep these on like a 2 hour time limit, because I'm sure we can talk for days
There's
and
a
days
lot
and
to it,
days
man. We can
about
do a
everything.
part two if we have to. So.
Um, well, we will. I always, before I let you plug away everything that you need to plug, I always got to give a shout out to our sponsors, MCI Graphics, Velocity Racing, Geomax, Admin Box, Speedy Trophies, the Baller Status Boys, Track Racer, My Three Sons, C2 Gaming, Fuego Paints. We couldn't do any of this without anybody. Last but not least, Signature Esports. Everything you do, Jason, is the 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 gratitude's there. I don't think I need to even express it to you. Um, Plug away, my friend.
Well, for the most part, I do a lot for you guys, so which is always a blessing, and I'm more appreciative of that as well. If you guys have stayed around to the end, we'll have to do a part two because there's a lot more to say and a lot more to talk about. That we talked a lot more about the personal life and the relationships and kind of how what our opinions of stock car racing and that more so than we did the sport and where iRacing is going. I think where the leagues are going, where I think that where I think iRacing will go eventually if we can do that, and where I think there are some things that I think that Chop Shop can do as a league, but not improve on. I think you guys have 5 series, and that was one thing I was going to talk about, touch on real quick before I give that last little CSI how are you kind of thing. But I think that Chop Shop can be the brand that takes a series and actually grows it as a series, has a development group, has a development staff, has I think that's where Chop Shop can hit. And I think that regardless if I were there or not, I think that's the direction that I think Chop Chop is going and can go if the effort and of course the time and energy is put there if they so choose it, you guys so choose it. So very proud to have been a part of Chop Shop and the growth there. I have sponsors I always have to thank as well. Of course, he's in here, Mandarood Racing, of course, James Mandarood, my first follower, my first supporter, and he's also a sponsor of Signature Esports as well. Chop Chop Racing, of course, is a sponsor of Signature Esports. They sponsor everything that we do, all of our broadcasts, not just the broadcasts we do for them, but for every broadcast that we do. Beef Jerky Unlimited, of course, sponsors all the driver cams that we do for across the leagues and all the things that you guys do with us as well. NordVPN, of course, Sonoma TV, another iRacing broadcaster out there. If you guys are looking for an iRacing broadcaster and it's not me, I recommend Noma TV. You can find them on YouTube. And of course, you can find me on Facebook, Twitch, and YouTube. You go to signaturemedia.net. And yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot, but
It it is, and like you said, we'll
yeah.
definitely do a part two. I mean, we just scratch the surface. Um, Again, thank you, Jason, for taking time out of your busy day. Um, I know you had the day off. I had the day off, so it worked out great. Thanks to all the viewers, everybody out there watching this. Jason Followell, sorry. Um, Go check him out on Like I said, he is everywhere: Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. He has his own Discord. He's a very personal person. Talk to him. You can talk to him about literally anything. This guy is an open book. He's a great guy. Thanks for joining us on another Chop Shop episode, and keep your eyes out for part two. We'll make that happen in a few months.